All right. We're ready to go.
Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Disadvantaged Community Advisory Group May 17, 2024 meeting. I'm Roman, the DACAG chair and facilitator for today's meeting. Appreciate you all joining us on this Friday afternoon. Before we get into our agenda items and roll call, just a quick reminder, Senate Bill 544 requires members of the DACAG who are participating remotely to remain visible on camera. If you have challenges with internet connectivity during this meeting preventing you from being visible to the other members and to the public, you must publicly announce the reasons you are off camera as soon as possible. I will make my announcement right now. It's Friday afternoon. My kids are home, so my bandwidth will probably be fluctuating throughout the day or throughout the afternoon. So hopefully that is noted in case I need to go off camera. All right, with that, we can now proceed to roll call. I'll read the names one by one. And actually, before I get started, we are welcoming 3 new members to the DACAG. Really excited to have Abimael, Chelsea, and Sarah. We'll do introductions in a bit, but just wanted to do a quick hello and introduction to our 3 new members. And then once again, really thank our departing members, Roger, Andres, and Adrian for all their efforts over the last few years as part of the DACAG. So with that, we'll jump into roll call. Abimael?
Here.
Welcome. Chelsea?
Here.
Hey, Chelsea, welcome. Sarah? Hey, Sarah. Elena will not be joining us today. Fred won't be joining us today. Roman is here. Julia? Hey, Julia. Sahara? All right, no Sahara. Curtis won't be joining us today. And Stephanie?
Here.
All right. Hi, Steph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, we have quorum. So we'll be able to move forward on any voting issues that we have today, voting items for today. All right, with that now, let's turn on to item 2, general public comment. Agency staff will provide meeting reminders and instructions. So I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Roman. Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Krantz. I'm support staff for the DACAG and a regulatory analyst at the California Public Utilities Commission. Supporting us today are my colleagues Dorothy Marini and Francisco Hernandez, as well as legal support from both agencies, Jason Rieger and Renee Webster-Hawkins. A few reminders. This meeting is being recorded and held both remotely and in person. Roman, as facilitator, will conduct roll call votes for items the DACAG is voting on to ensure a clear record. We have enabled WebEx closed captioning feature to make this meeting more accessible. To use the closed captioning, press Control plus Shift plus A, or click on the bottom left CC icon. Once captions are turned on, attendees can click the 3 dots, More option at the bottom right of the caption box to view captions and highlights. Now, the WebEx instructions for public comment. This public comment is an opportunity for attendees to give comments regarding any matters related to the DACAG or today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and will alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you'd like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to mute and unmute. For those of you in person, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. The chat feature is not available to attendees or the Q&A feature. It is solely for panelists to ask technical, procedural, or legal support. If you're having any issues, please email dac-ag@cpuc.ca.gov. Now I'm going to check for any comments. I see Commissioner Houck, and I'm going to make a panelist. And Commissioner Houck, you should now have the ability to unmute yourself and turn your microphone on and your camera on if you'd like as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I didn't hear what you said right before you made me a panelist. So are you asking for commissioner comments?
Not yet, but thank you,
Okay.
Kashak. We'll get there.
Okay,
Nice to see you today. Are there any other public comments? All right, seeing none, I will pass the mic back to you, Roman.
Great, thank you, Amanda. With that, we'll close item number 2 and move on to item number 3, opening remarks by the Energy Commission and the Public Utilities Commission. I'd like to acknowledge the commissioners joining us today, and we welcome you to say hello and give some brief remarks if you'd like. We'll start with the Energy Commission first. Commissioner Monahan. Or if staff or someone from staff is here, it could also provide comments.
Sorry, I'm just getting all the, I just got promoted, so I'm
there
trying
you
to
go.
get all my technology set up. So, yeah, well, excited for today, excited to get some feedback from the DACAG, and just wanted to let you all know that we're going to be hosting our first advisory committee meeting for the Clean Transportation Program. And in fact, let me just pull up the exact dates, the first week of June, but just so folks know, June 7th, Friday, June 7th. And, you know, we're going to have, as in past years, a separate way to engage the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group. But my thinking is after we have that initial meeting that, and we get some feedback and we understand better what's happening in the budget, that will come to you, and we want to make sure we get good feedback from the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group. And just, you know, everybody knows this is a tough budget year. I will also say, you know, historically, there's always been, you know, there's a process that happens between when the governor proposes a May budget and then discussions with the legislature and, you know, the final budget bill that happens at the end. So this is kind of go time in terms of the budget, and a really tough budget year. So we're looking for a lot of good input on how we can spend state funds the most, you know, in the most effective way. Our advisory committee has been reconstituted, and I'm excited for that. We're going to have like Pastor Vaughn from San Diego, who's working on, you might know him actually, Roman, who's working on building out low-income housing and on church property. And really, you know, he has this slogan, yes, in God's backyard, which I just love. And this idea of like, we have new committee members who are working in communities to build out chargers, and excited to get that input and really think through how do we tailor like where we put our money, but also how we spend our money. So we're going to have a separate presentation on transportation anyway with today, but I just wanted to tee that up for a future conversation.
Great, thank you, Commissioner, for that update. Yeah, I did get a chance to look at the list of committee
Roman,
members.
I think you're talking, but we can't hear you.
I can hear him.
Oh,
I can hear you.
thanks, Commissioner Hawk. Yeah, I was just saying thank you, Commissioner Monahan, for that update. Can you hear me, Commissioner? All right, maybe not.
Sorry, I can hear you.
Okay, I think other folks can hear me, but maybe not Commissioner Monahan. Yeah, I was just going to say I did get a chance to take a look at the advisory committee members, and it looks like a good group of folks be chiming in, and I think we're looking forward to then having a discussion afterwards to see whether DACAG can provide additional support, right? Knowing what you mentioned, a tough budget year, and how do we ensure that we're being really intentional and targeted with the limited resources that we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Gallardo.
I'm not sure Commissioner Gallardo is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wait, so if Commissioner Gallardo is not here or any staff, then we'll move on to the PUC. Commissioner Howe.
So thank you. And I'll just second what Commissioner Monahan said. It is a tough budget year, so we're all going to be looking at that and making sure that we're able to keep critical programs and want to spend money as efficiently as possible, and your input's going to be really important to make sure that we're able to ensure that equity is embedded in what and how we're spending that funding. Also, I want to welcome the new DACAG members who are here today, and I know that there's going to be another place on the agenda to do that, but wanted to welcome them. Excited to be working with all of you, and again, happy to meet with anyone as well on any specific issues. We're doing a lot of work at the PUC looking at the energization issues, distribution planning. We have a proposal out for having the utilities re-looking at how they're doing their distribution planning that comments are coming in on. So encourage anyone to take a look at that proposal. We're trying to get more localized input so that we're ahead of the game instead of having to have people delayed in getting their connections in. Also, just wanted to mention that, we've also got a lot going on with broadband and, looking at how the budget is potentially going to be impacting some of the work there. So encourage any feedback you may have on the on broadband and the different programs we have in that area. And again, just trying to get out to different parts of the state, particularly talking to different communities on looking at distribution interconnection issues and how we can make sure that we're streamlining and getting folks connected so that we can move forward with looking at how and when we can electrify. So I'm sure there's about 1 million more things we're doing and looking at. So if there's any specific questions, happy to answer that, but we'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, and I think this brings up a interesting potential agenda item for us for June around budget impacts into both Energy and PUC Commission programs, because just looking at the list, right, or having looked at the budget, that does impact multiple programs at both agencies. And I know we'll be kind of running against the clock, right, in our next meeting to have the budget approved, but I think it might be helpful to have an agenda item that kind of speaks more to the impacts, and then kind of thinking through how the agencies will respond, right, to broadband programs, capacity building, charging infrastructure programs at the Energy Commission, so that we could have a discussion here on how to support those efforts. Thank you, Commissioner, and see if Commissioner Douglas is Commissioner Douglas join us.
Hi, I'm Kareem Mandelbaum. I advise Commissioner Douglas. She regrets she's not able to make it today. She's traveling. She did ask me to convey a warm welcome to the reappointed and newly appointed members, and also convey a congratulations. Commissioner Douglas appreciates the important function that the DACAG serves as an advisory board to both the CEC and CPUC, and the critical and diverse perspectives that DACAG brings to our proceedings and programs. She's looking forward to engaging with you further, and thank you for having us here today. That's all, Amanda, back to you.
All right, thank you so much for those remarks. All right, let's move on to other leadership. All right, and here, anyone else? Amanda, is there anyone else that we need to make sure that we include here?
No, I believe that's it. Thanks, Ramon.
All right. Okay, thank you, Amanda. Great. All right, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is the minutes from the April 19, 2024 meeting. Before we go into DACAG discussion, let's turn to see if there are any public comments on this item.
Yes, sorry, just waiting for the share screen. Thank you, Ramon, and thank you, Dorothy. DACAG now welcomes public comments on the April 2024 meeting minutes. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We're showing a timer on screen and will alert you when your time is up. All comments are part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute. For anyone in the room, please raise your hand. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record and share before sharing your comment. I will now check for any raised hands. Seeing none, I pass the mic back to you, Ramon.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Now turning over to DACAG member discussion. If there are any questions or comments on the meeting minutes from April? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the April minutes?
I'll move to approve.
All right, Stephanie moves. Who seconds? I will second. This is Roman. I second this motion. Okay, now let's turn to roll call vote. Say aye if you're in favor, say nay if you oppose, or indicate if you will abstain. Abimael?
Aye.
Chelsea?
Aye.
Okay. Curtis is not here. Elena is not here. Fred is also not here. Julia?
Aye.
Thank you. Roman? Aye. Sahara is also not here. And Sarah?
I was going to abstain since I haven't had a chance to look at them and I wasn't at the meeting. Is that cause
That's
a
fine.
problem? Okay.
No, that's fine. We have enough we have quorum. I know we only have quorum for our overall items, but for the agenda itself, we do have the quorum needed. So, Stephanie?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So motion passes. Meeting minutes for April have been approved.
Sorry, Ramon, I believe that was 5 votes, which I don't, is that a majority today?
I think we've had this conversation. I think that's enough, right? To
Can
approve
Renee
the
weigh in?
minutes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we need a majority of those present to affirm
Yeah.
the votes. So we have 5 with 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Please continue.
Yes.
No worries. Thank you for checking on Amanda. All right. Moving on to the fun agenda item here, introduction and meet and greet with the new DACAG members. We have, as I mentioned at the top, we have 3 new members joining us today, Abimael Chavez Hernandez, Chelsea Kirk, and Sarah Sharp. These members were recently appointed by both the Energy Commission and PUC at their respective commission meetings this month. We're really excited to have you all joining us at on the DACAG. And we're going to spend some time just getting to know each other, both the new DACAG members as well as I guess the OGs who've been here for some time. And so with that, I would like to turn it over first to our new incoming members, to Abimael, then Chelsea, and then Sarah. And if you want to briefly introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and also why you're interested in serving on a DACAG. So turn it over to Abimael.
Yeah, thank you, Roman. Yeah, so glad to be here, my fellow commissioners. My name is Abimael Chavez Hernandez. I'm from the Central Valley, specifically the Modesto area, San Jose County, and I've worked with the Modesto Community Collaborative, which is a community-based organization focused on community development, social services, and I've grown up in this area most of my life. I did move to Minnesota to do a master's. I went to UC Davis for my undergrad, and I always had a strong interest in creating more equitable processes, especially as we're transitioning into a carbon-free economy. I really want to make sure that we have the perspective of communities like Modesto and the Central Valley, where we haven't seen some of these investments, and make sure that we have an equitable distribution of these benefits across the state, and we can all share in the transition to a new economy and everything that it entails. So, thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Abimael. I'll turn it over to Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor to join this advisory group, and really looking forward to this responsibility and working with and learning from everyone here. My name is Chelsea Kirk. I'm from Southeast Los Angeles, Downey, California. I currently serve as the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. We're a community-based organization in South LA that works to advance tenants' rights, healthy housing, and equitable land use in the LA area. And our work is primarily driven by our membership of low-income renters. For almost 8 years, my background has been in working in various capacities to assist low-income renters fighting to stay in their homes. And so I have this intimate, understanding of the unique challenges renters face. And I brought this perspective to my current position's residential building decarbonization work, which I've been leading for the last 3 years. And so in this role, I've really strived to ensure that like policies and programs locally and at the state level have worked to advance electrification in a way that centers renters who, make up almost half of the households in California, yet I've found to be largely overlooked in energy policy. And so my interest in joining the DACAG is to really support the CPUC and CEC in program and policy development and sort of help agencies understand the unique challenges that renters face and how, unfortunately, renters tend to be more at risk of negative unintended consequences because of energy policies and are also uniquely hindered from accessing clean energy programs and reaping the benefits of the clean energy transition because of their position at renters. And yeah, so that's a bit about me. I'm really grateful to be here.
Welcome, Chelsea. Appreciate that perspective you be bringing. I'll turn it now to Sarah.
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah Sharp. I'm actually having a hard time seeing anyone, and now I can't see myself either. So can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, I may, after this section of the agenda, I may try to log off and log back on. But thank you. It is an honor to serve on this advisory group for me as well. I am currently the Deputy Executive Director at the Central California Asthma Collaborative, and we serve all 8 counties of the San Joaquin Valley. We have 5 offices around the valley, and I am based in Fresno. We go into asthma patients' homes and identify triggers and try to provide resources to remediate any triggers for indoor air pollution. And so that's one piece of our work that I'm hoping to really integrate with building decarbonization and bring those resources to the same families who would benefit from improved air filtration, improved HVAC systems, et cetera. And we also do policy work on climate equity and environmental justice and research, quite a few research projects. And so my work will be very much overlapped with going out into the community, talking to them and seeing what their needs are around energy and climate issues as we try to accomplish a just transition. And I have a background. I worked at the California Public Utilities Commission as an advisor to a commissioner for a few years previously. And before that, I worked in other community benefit organizations in the Valley on environmental justice since pretty much the beginning of my career. So, I'm excited to bring the connections we have on the ground, going into people's homes, meeting with communities on air, energy, and transportation issues, and bringing that feedback back to here and seeing what we can do to address all of the exciting issues that the PUC and the CEC are undertaking currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for those. And thank you, Chelsea and Abimael, for those introductions. Yeah, we're extremely excited to have you 3 join us and help keep the work that, the DACAG does collectively moving that work forward, right? And ensuring that we're really centering our most impacted communities throughout the state and ensuring that we are creating those direct and meaningful benefits. Before we go into DACAG introductions, I would actually first like to turn it over to the commissioners that are still on. So Commissioner Hawk, if you would like to say some words, I'll turn it over to you first.
Yes, I wanted to thank all of you for serving on the DACAG. It's a really important tool for us to be able to get direct information from community representatives on the programs that we have. really excited about the folks that are reappointed and the new folks. We had an opportunity to review with our staff, your backgrounds and the information you provided in regards to your interest. We've got a lot on the table, and as we talked about earlier with the budget, things are going to be stretched even tighter. So getting input from this committee is going to be even more important over the next year as we look at what these budget impacts are going to mean for our programs. So really excited that all of you are up for the challenge and participating in the committee. And again, I'm happy to meet with any of the members of the committee in regards to looking at goals and things that we at the PUC need to be considering as we move forward. So again, just thank you so much for your willingness to participate. We know that this takes up a lot of time, but it is really important, and we are listening to the information we hear back from the group.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hogg. Commissioner Monahan?
Well, I want to just reiterate how much we appreciate you helping us, helping the state of California participate in making sure that as we make investments, or as we do regulations or implement policies, that we're attentive to the impacts to communities across the state. And I just am really excited to have representation from across the state, the Central Valley, Los Angeles, and of course Northern California. Excuse me. And I want to emphasize that we do listen, and this is I think for both agencies, equity is just a cornerstone of what we do, and we are always learning. We never get it just right, is what I would say. That this is something that we need to keep our minds and our hearts open to and adjust as we go. So just thank you for your service to California. Thank you for helping us. And like Commissioner Houck, I want to just welcome any of the new members or the existing members to, if you want to reach out and have a deeper dive conversation, I welcome it. I know Commissioner Gallardo, who couldn't come today, that she as well has an open door, and just encourage you to reach out. That this is not the only opportunity for engagement. If you want to have more of a one-on-one conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Monahan. With that, then we'll move to DACAG introduction, DACAG member introductions. I can kick us off and then, popcorn it to other members here. But again, we're really excited to have you three join us. I'm Roman Partia Lopez. My day job, I'm the Senior Legal Counsel for Transportation Equity at the Greenlining Institute, and Greenlining is a racial and economic equity advocacy organization. I've been on the DACAG now for, I don't know, seems like a decade. It's not that long, I know, but probably like 2 years. I want to say maybe more. I've been the chair maybe for the last year, 6 months. I have lost track of time, to be honest. So it's somewhere around that ballpark number. But I'm based here in San Diego, California, the border region. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to join the DACAG, right? Both, I think part of what I'm doing my day job aligns a lot with what the programs and policies that the Energy Commission and the Public Utilities Commission, are overseeing. But primarily it's been to be it's been over a year. Okay, wow, all right. Thank you for that, Amanda. But I think primarily I wanted to be able to bring the perspective from the southern border region, having grown up here on the border, and kind of seeing the impacts both of the transportation sector and the energy sector on the border region, but even for a lot of us that are fronterizos, living kind of on both sides of the border, the impact that living on both sides of the border has on communities, and so really wanting to bring that perspective. But I also primarily, like, my focus has been transportation electrification over the last few years, and really hone in on those topics when we have that discussion. But part of the reason I'm also here is because being in this space also gives me an opportunity to engage on other issues that I generally don't have capacity for during my day job, to engage on issues around affordability, to engage on issues around building decarb that are not the areas of that I spend most of my hours on. gives an opportunity to be able to provide input and hear what agencies are doing and be able to bring that back both to my organization, but bring back to the community, right, and the folks that I work with here locally as well. I also say that another reason why I'm here is and continue to be here is I think the commitment from both agencies to listen to us and take our perspective into consideration and many times like implement that right back into the policies or programs and guidelines that they're developing. I think having the commissioners here, as you see, they're here for introductions, but many times, right, they do move their schedule around and stay here for as long as possible. Sometimes our whole meeting, and so I think that's another part that I really appreciate, that we do have that opportunity to be in discussion here amongst ourselves with staff, but having commissioners listening in as well and taking that back. So those are things that I really appreciate about being part of the DACAG and part of why I still continue to be here and share this great set of this great group of folks that are part of it. So with that, I'll just popcorn it over to Julia, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Great to see everybody. Welcome. My name is Julia Hatton. My day job is President and CEO at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity, which is a workforce development organization providing training and preparation for careers in climate and in construction. And we operate in the greater Bay Area as well as in San Joaquin County. And I've been with Rising Sun for the past 12 years, and it's just been increasingly clear to me through that work how important the perspective of workforce development is in any conversations related to climate and climate investment. And there's just such a tremendous opportunity from both a climate resilience and economic equity perspective to leverage the public dollars that go into climate programs to result in good quality green jobs that are accessible to folks who've been locked out of prosperity in the past. So I wanted to bring that perspective. Also, like Roman, it gives me a great opportunity to learn about what else is going on and to learn from other perspectives across the state. And I've been a member since, I believe, September 2022, and have been serving as the secretary since that time. And excited to continue to bring a workforce development perspective from both the supply and demand side as we continue our conversations. I'll pass it to Stephanie.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome, new members. It's really exciting to have you here, and I'm looking forward to learning from you all, as well as echoing the sentiments that Roman and Julia shared about this being really a great space for learning for all of us. So my day job currently is Director of Legislative Affairs for MCE. We're a CCA in the Bay Area serving 4 counties. And I got started in this work as well as at the DACAG, at the beginning of the DACAG. I was one of the original DACAG members, but got started in energy work really through the lens of equity and really racial justice. Prior to joining MCE about 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago now, I was Director of Energy Equity at the Greenlighting Institute, which Roman spoke about earlier. And that was how I landed in energy. When I came to Greenlighting out of law school, I didn't know anything about energy and climate. And they said, "Oh, you're a lawyer. Great. Our lawyers work on these things." And I went, "Oh, that seems interesting." And it turned out to be fascinating and really a great career direction. That was, I will date myself a little bit here, but that was, 2 years after cap and trade got authorized, and a couple of years before SB 535. And it was also pretty much the year that the iPhone came out. So when it comes to energy, climate, broadband, communications, all of those things, it was a really fascinating time to get deeply involved in these issues. So I have always carried that equity lens, of course, through everything that I do, and I'm very happy to be able to continue that here in my work here. And the DACAG is one of my favorite parts of the month. I really enjoy spending time with you and really appreciate, at the risk of overstating, which I don't think can be overstated, really appreciate the line of dialogue and the open communication and really the robust conversations that we are able to have in this forum with the CEC and the PUC. So thank you, commissioners and staff, for always being so willing to engage with us. And with that, I will see who else is here.
I think that's it.
That it?
I think from
All right.
our end, yeah.
That's
Yeah, we only have 6 today. Well, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Julia, for those introductions as well. We are missing a handful of other DACAG members, Elena, Curtis, Fred, and Sahara, who all bring various perspectives from across the state and from their day jobs. And I know when we have them in our next month meeting, we'll also open up some time for them to provide some introductions. So you all know who you'll be sharing your Friday afternoons, right? Once a month on a Friday afternoon at 1. Which is a lot, right? I think that's a level of commitment that I think we need to uplift and really uplift, because usually a lot of this work happens throughout the week. Friday afternoons you usually want to be wrapping up, right? But we're here, we're present, we're engaging, and that just shows a level of commitment from everyone that is part of the DACAG to be able to be engaging and provide meaningful input, right, for staff on issues that we really care about. In a couple agenda items further down, we'll talk about the various priority areas that we have as a DACAG. We all can join those as subject matter experts and leads, and we can only have 5, no more than 5, to avoid any Bagley-Keene issues. But later on, we'll talk about your potential participation in those, especially as we've lost 3 other members, and so we're leaving some vacancies. So hopefully we'll be able to get you all to sign up for one of those. Sorry, my little one is here and is calling me. Let me tell her to pause really quick. Okay, all right. So with that, I wanted to see if there's any closing remarks from anyone before we close out this agenda item. All right, then hearing none, well, again, welcome, and we're really excited to have you all. With that, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is CEC's presentation on the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure 2024 Deployment Plan. I welcome Ben De Alva and Jim McKinney to present this item. Turn it over to you all.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Ben De Alva here with the California Energy Commission, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jim McKinney. We are going to provide an update on our NEVI deployment plan, and that stands for the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. And I'm going to give a quick overview of sort of our progress to date on the NEVI program, and then Jim will take over and give a little bit more update and detail about the plan itself. Next slide, please. So the NEVI program was created as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. That act allocated $5 billion nationwide for states to use for electric vehicle infrastructure deployment, chargers specifically. It's a formulaic program, so California is going to get $384 million over 5 years out of that $5 billion pot. And the state is implementing the program in partnership in a sort of dual partnership fashion, the Energy Commission with Caltrans. And Caltrans is involved because the funds technically go to Caltrans, and then we are in an agreement with Caltrans to administer the program. Now we're going to use that funding to deploy chargers, DC fast chargers initially all across the state, and the minimum standards require that we deploy, the stations have 4 charging ports at 150 kilowatts per charging port. And the program also requires that those stations be located every 50 miles along the corridor. A significant piece about the program too is that it's a Justice 40 program, which means that the feds require us to have 40% of the program benefit Justice 40 communities. And then, of course, we're going to overlay our state goal of making sure that 50% of the chargers are in disadvantaged and low-income communities. Next slide, please. So we've put together 2 solicitations thus far. The first one has closed already, and that was GFO 23601, and that put out $40.5 million of our formula funds. That was released back in October, and we expect to announce the awards relatively shortly here before the end of the month. We are working on the second solicitation as we speak, and hopefully in hopes of releasing it later in the summer. And that will be for about 100 million, 110 here it says, for the remaining products that we have, which I'll talk about in just another slide here. And so not to dwell too much here, next slide, please. Okay, well, this is the information here that you really need to worry about, or I want to point your attention to, is the total column on the far right here. So I said 384, it's 383.6 technically over 5 years. And this kind of gives you a breakdown of where we are to date with the funds. And that year 1, year 2, all the way to 5 is the allocations that we are expected to get from the federal government. So we've received the first 3 years already, and we are waiting for year 4 and year 5. The deployment plan is an important piece of that, as Jim will touch on later. And you can see that $40.5 million from solicitation 1 and about $110 million for solicitation 2. And then what's left over is $232.9 million of the program. And that is funds that we have yet to plan to invest with yet. So the first 2 solicitations I should have mentioned are focused really on light duty investments. And then there's some opportunity to do medium and heavy duty and further our goals with light duty in that remaining balance there, $232 million. Next slide, please. So we've taken a corridor style approach to our projects. So in the first 2 solicitations, we've identified 21 different corridor group projects. That's what you see here, the spaghetti colors all across the state. Those are different corridor projects. We put out 6 corridor projects in the first round, solicitation 1. That primarily consisted of the Central Valley and some LA and San Diego routes. Solicitation 2, given its significant increase in amount of funds available, is going to do the rest of our corridor projects. So that's about 17, and that'll cover the rest of the state and all of the remaining projects that we have identified for our light duty DC fast charging installations. Next slide, please. Here are some of, it's really kind of hard to point out, but you can see, and we have an interactive map if you wish to see this in any more detail, we can share that with you. But some of the groups that we've identified here in the northern part of the state will be included in round 2. Next slide, please. And these will be some of the Southern California groups as well. And I won't dwell too much on pointing out the ones, but there will be a mix of LA. Group 13 will be in there in the Central Valley, the orange that you see, and some of the stretches going out. The 395, which is a long stretch through the center of the state as well, will be in their round 2. So I'm going to pass it off to Jim now. You can take it from here.
Great, thank you, Ben. Slide, please. Yeah, first, I want to say hello to the DACAG members and Commissioners Houck and Monahan. Thanks for including us on your agenda today. So this is a good kickoff because I'm the project manager for what we call the NEVI deployment plan update, kind of like our investment plan update. It comes out once a year. We have to do one each year. Before we even got going, we got this great letter from many members of DACAG, so Earth Justice, Greenlining, and I now know Central California Asthma Collaborative, which is a group I hadn't known before, and many others sent us a forceful, positive, encouraging letter to get with it on truck charging. And these are just some of the quotes that they had there. So I think, as most of us know, immense public health and environmental justice benefits can come from getting diesel trucks off the road and their emission profiles. in alleviating disproportionate diesel emissions, impacts disadvantaged minority communities. In my mind, ground zero for this is like the San Pedro ports, the I-710, the 60, the Inland Empire, and then of course the San Joaquin Valley along the 5, 99, and Highway 101, where there's just high volumes of truck traffic. Yeah, and they also referenced supporting this transition to advanced clean fleets and advanced clean trucks from our colleagues at the Air Resources Board. Slide, please. Here's a bunch of numbers, and these stats are what I like to call the parade of terribles for diesel truck emissions and public health. You've probably seen some version of these, so I'll go through them quickly. But for total transportation emissions, when you include upstream petroleum refining, transportation covers half of all the greenhouse gas emissions in California, 80% of the NOx emissions, which is a precursor to smog, and then 30% of the fine particulates that are so detrimental to sensitive lungs, so what we call sensitive receptors in growing children. And diesel trucks have a disproportionate contribution to these these levels. So we have 30 million vehicles in the state, give or take a few thousand. About 1 million of these are trucks. So it's about 3% of the total vehicle fleet in the state. But these relatively small number of vehicles account for 1/3 of mobile source NOx, 1/4 of mobile source carbon emissions, and then 70% of the known cancer risk from toxic air contaminants. So again, I think you're all familiar with some version of these numbers. They're important, and it looks like we can maybe start to apply some of these NEVI funds to working in the truck sector. Slide, please. You may have heard of our AB 2127 report. We just released the second version of that earlier this year. And for the first time, really, our colleagues at the commission, but our technical wizards and our modelers really delved into trucks and what does it mean to support industrial scale truck charging. So by 2030, to support 155,000 zero emission trucks, we'll need 5,500 public chargers and 100,000 depot chargers. And depot chargers are what they call behind the fence, so in a service yard or the freight yard for a given fleet. That's where you'll find those. And then by 2035, the policy goal is to electrify nearly 1/3 of all the trucks in California, which would require 8,500 public chargers and 250,000 depot chargers. So this is a lot of chargers. And truck chargers are different, substantially different from light duty chargers. You need a bigger footprint so you can pull the trucks in and out safely. And you need a lot more just electric horsepower. So we're talking about 350 kW, 500 kilowatt, and megawatt or 1,000 kilowatt charging coming up soon. So those loads make it really tricky to site these because they have to be in a spot where there's sufficient power to charge these sites. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Yeah, slide, please. Okay, so that does it. So a couple more things that I wanted to say about this, and if you could maybe back it up just a slide. So first of all, we've been active with truck charging and the federal agencies, Federal Highway Administration and the Department of Energy, or what they call the Joint Office for Energy and Transportation. And there's another part of NEVI called the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure, which is a competitive solicitation. Last year, we put together a tri-state proposal for border-to-border truck charging from Mexico to Canada along I-5. And I really want to thank those members of DACAG that supported us wholeheartedly last year for this. So I know, Roman, you were part of that, Adrian was part of that, and perhaps others as well. So your support is critical. We're pretty sure we can use NEVI funding for truck charging, but the regs and the guidance aren't really clear. We get kind of conflicting messages from federal highways sometimes. But as Ben said earlier on, through our second solicitation, we will have covered all of what they call alternative fuel corridors And it's about 7,000 miles of freeways and state highways in California. We'll have done our job under NEVI, and we'll have quite a bit of money left to work with going forward. That can be used for a lot of different things: community charging, MED charging, charging in areas on public roads that are not part of the alternative fuel corridor system, or trucks. So maybe I'll just leave it there, and I don't know if there'll be a discussion or not, but we really appreciate your ongoing encouragement to get into the truck charging business wholesale. We're working on it. It's not easy. We've got a lot of really good programs already underway in the Clean Transportation Program, but this federal funding is new and it's a rare opportunity, and we're being assertive in going after it. And we may call upon you again to help us work with the feds to be sure that we can shift this funding. Thanks very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Ben and Jim, for that presentation. Before we get into DACAG discussion, let's first turn to see if there's any public comments on the item.
Thank you. DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item. Again, comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments are part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature. That looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute. For anyone in this room, please raise your hand. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record and share your comment. I'm going to check for hands. Okay. All right, we have Judith Clay here from the CPUC.
A little unconventional, but I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to learn a little bit more about relationships to programs with our sister agency. SB 49, which was signed by the governor last October, directs Caltrans to do a study along their corridors of kind of energy infrastructure, and including renewable energy. I know that the CEC and the PUC and Caltrans will be working together to implement the bill, but I just wonder if there's any comments on relationship to that work that's going to be coming up with these programs, or potentially.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing no hands, turn it back to you, Ramon.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, before we then get into DACAG discussion, I'll turn it to Ben and Jim to see if there's a response to Judith's comment.
We were working hand in hand with Caltrans, so if it does connect, we will certainly know about it. We haven't done quite really much related to that effort at the moment, but what I can say is that the investments that we are making with the NEVI program have to be along federally designated corridors. They're called alternative fuel corridors, or we say AFC for short. And we go through a process with Caltrans to designate those corridors, and they are both for light duty travel, and now the Federal Highway Administration has made calls to designate routes for medium and heavy duty traffic. And the federal government has its own sort of analysis of those routes as well, and designate. And if they're, and what they do is they're using those routes to determine if there's enough alternative fueling along those routes, and they will deem routes ready. And that's essentially what we're working towards. We're trying to make these alternative fuel corridors ready for zero emission vehicle travel.
Great, thanks for that response, Ben. All right, well, now we'll turn it over to DACAG questions and comments. And yeah, I mean, I'll kick us off here, but really want to thank you both for the presentation and providing us an update as where we're at with NEVI funding. one of the questions that I have regarding kind of the corridor charging investments that have happened thus far, right? And I think this is more kind of in the weeds of the solicitations that have been put out. I'm just curious about, the level of engagement that needs to happen with communities, especially when it comes to those projects that are in Justice 40 or within disadvantaged communities, right? From having engaged on like corridor charging issues in the past, right? Like generally that's not something, it's not always a resource for local communities, right? It's for those that are traveling along that freeway or highway, and generally sometimes not, fully accessible to those in disadvantage or Justice 40, given the requirement here. And so I'm just curious whether within the solicitation itself there is a requirement or something that you know requires whoever is submitting the proposal that there is some level of community engagement, or whether it's with the community or with a community-based organization to get feedback, right, around where that deployment is happening.
Yeah, so what we've done, and that's a great question, Chair. So we've scored the project. We haven't quite gotten to the awards yet, and so we haven't finalized the scope of works and the agreements with those projects. But in order to receive the funding, they had to articulate how they're going to benefit and work. Articulate the community benefits to those local communities that are going to receive these stations, and they got a score based off of their ability to articulate those benefits in their application. So we've gotten to that point, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a great suggestion, and one I can take back to the team to make sure that we're working towards that goal.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for that. And I think that's something that, as we continue to move forward with these types of investments, I think the challenge that we've seen over the years, right, is that, we want to ensure that it's not just like a geographical benefit, and because there's a designation of a disadvantage or a Justice 40 community that on its own, right, is enough for them to score higher, right, or get the additional points, right, for being able to have some of these chargers placed in communities. We've talked about like, benefits to people, not just places. And so how do we make sure we're taking that next step, right? Both with, federal funding, but, also state funding, so that we are, again, more intentional of where these are being placed, and who's actually getting to use those chargers, especially if the funds are supposed to be being secured for the benefit of disadvantaged communities, right? So how are we then tweaking guidelines or solicitations to embed some more language, right, that directs these applicants to be able to do more of that community engagement, or figure out other alternatives, right, to be able to then really demonstrate what it means to provide that direct benefit to those that live in those communities that they're placing chargers in. So thank you for that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to point out too that the feds haven't given us a whole lot of direction on how to measure the benefits to Justice 40 communities. So we are open all ears to hear the best ways to do that and to measure those goals. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, happy to provide more there, as that's something that I'm definitely interested in, and wanting to explore that further. And we provided comments at the on NEVI, but we can circulate those and then figure out how we can ensure here that we're providing those benefits. My other question before I turn it over to other DACAG members is just thinking about the coordination, right, with other agencies. I think one thing is to deploy the charging infrastructure in these communities, but again, thinking about these investments in priority populations, disadvantaged communities, Justice 40 communities. I think there's probably some overlap coordination that needs to happen with the resources board, as they're the ones who have access to the vehicle incentives. And so I'm just curious, like, to what degree is that coordination evolving, right? Like I've heard in the past, like some joint solicitations, but how does that continue to evolve given these investments that are happening, given the investments that are happening in disadvantaged communities? And then thinking about the medium to heavy duty piece, one of the things I've brought up in the past, right, is like really helping coordinate those investments with the AB 617 community emission reduction plans that are out there, right? Multiple communities throughout the state have come together to develop these emission reduction plans that are tied to medium to heavy duty transition to zero emission vehicles. And so, how are those discussions going, if there have been any, right, to ensure that that coordination is happening and aligning efforts? Because at the end of the day, one of the things I keep saying is like, there's always that question of like the chicken and the egg, like what comes first, the vehicles or the charging? And I think for our communities, I think it's really important to have both happening simultaneously, right? And if we're going to deploy charging, that there's a concerted effort, right, to get vehicle incentives in those communities so that they're able to take advantage of it, and then don't see charging deployment as another, another investment that is not for them, that potentially leads to, things around gentrification and other concerns that they might have.
And I can maybe take a stab at this from the coordination piece, Roman, there. That we have been doing more joint solicitations with CARB. We've done a drayage truck and infrastructure solicitation in 2020, and since then we've been building out sort of more opportunities to coordinate with the Air Resources Board. Our block grant program for medium and heavy duty is called Energized Commercial Vehicles, and I'll start as the administrator for that, and also for the vehicle incentives that CARB is giving out. And we've been really trying to coordinate more on the infrastructure and pairing it with vehicles. As you know, there's that chicken and egg issue. And honestly, we've been really just doubling down on getting funding for drayage infrastructure, which seems like that no matter, I mean, I should say 100% of the time, it's going to be located and impacting low income disadvantaged communities, but a significant amount. And so we've been trying to just, and the legislature is giving us this direction too, like, let's focus on the diesel reduction opportunities that are going to be most beneficial for communities. I think that comment that we need to do more and continue to look for, be really intentional with pairing with ARB and 617 communities is a really good one. And I think, as we've talked about before, we struggle sometimes with this idea that infrastructure deployment in communities is sometimes what they want and sometimes what they don't want. They don't want necessarily the trucks domiciled there. And so it's a complicated equation when it comes to infrastructure. We know when it comes to deployment of vehicles that it's a good thing on medium and heavy duty. When it comes to the infrastructure, it's an area where we've been trying to get more community input, especially with the grants that we manage in-house, about whether this is a good, whether, community organizations see this as a good project.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner, for that feedback there. And yeah, I mean, I think the more coordination that can happen, I think, the better, right? Given the investments that are happening at the Air Resources Board, obviously AB 617 has their own set of investments that they're tasked with implementing. And again, I just center it kind of on the emission reduction plans, right? And the fact that that is kind of, for a lot of those plans, electrification is one of the top priorities, or if not the priority, depending on where the community is at. And so again, if there's ways of trying to coordinate that and thinking about the community engagement piece, right, of like these advisory committees are meeting on a monthly basis, right, just like we do, because I sit on one of them here in San Diego, right? And how is that leveraged to see, and really think about utilizing that brain trust that exists there to be able to then figure out, okay, this is through AB 617, this happens through, Energy Commission. And I know some of these are competitive grant solicitations, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult to be that targeted or intentional, but I think there's still a way of kind of figuring that out by coordinating those efforts and then going into communities and getting some of that feedback to then make a determination, right, of where some of that charging should be placed, or where we should, as an agency, think about, giving direction to those that are applying of where some of the investments should happen to provide those benefits. But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely interested in and will continue to engage on. And I think we could touch base offline to figure out how to leverage those AB 617 advisory committees that are happening to get some of this information out there.
Yeah, I think that would be a good follow-up from this conversation, Ramon. I also think, for the first time, our investment plan that we put together that outlines how we're planning to spend our clean transportation program monies. For the first time, we're going to be welcoming input, not just on the categories of spending, so how much in light duty versus medium heavy duty, but actually within those categories. And because, we have a great advisory committee, there's, I think, a hunger for using that sort of bigger process to help inform more of the solicitations that we're developing in-house. And so we're going to be welcoming sort of more broader input into how funding should be spent in specific categories. So this is a good example, I think, of an opportunity that we should further explore.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I'll turn it over to other DACAG members who might have comments or questions. Okay, seeing some. I don't see anyone else coming off mute. All right. All right. Well, yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim and Commissioner for this discussion. Definitely something that I think the DACAG has been interested in for since the DACAG inception, and something that we definitely want to continue to engage on. And so, we welcome additional updates, and then if we need to set up some subject matter expert discussions, we'll also welcome that to go deeper into some of the stuff that we talked about today. Before we close out, then maybe we can just quickly turn to see if there are any public comments that may have arisen while we had this discussion.
Yes, absolutely. If there are any public comments, please use the raise hand feature in the raise hand feature at the bottom of your WebEx screen. Looks like an open pop. And make your comment. Chris, I don't know if you want to make your comment. Feel free to raise your hand if so. If not, I will hand it back to you. All right, I see Chris Ferret. I will request that you unmute. All right, Chris, are you getting my request to unmute? Not sure it's working. Okay, I don't know if this is working. Oh, it sounds like Chris's mic isn't working. Chris, maybe you could just let me know if you would like me to read your comment aloud. Okay, I'm going to read Chris's comment out loud. Chris Threat, if you could type your organization, that would be helpful so we can identify you. Message that regarding the use of the infrastructure, my understanding is that it's not being used by the local community. It's being used by commercial vehicles that are driving through communities. The benefit to the community is that pollution from vehicles passing through the community is being reduced as a result of the electric infrastructure. All right, that is the end of that comment. I pass it back to you, Ramon.
All right, thank you, Chris, for that comment. All right, so with that then, thanks everyone for the discussion. We'll close item number 6 and move on to item number 7, which is DACAG officers. We'll be discussing and possibly voting on and electing DACAG officers, including the DACAG chair, vice chair, and secretary. Before we move into the DACAG discussion, let's first turn to see if there's any public comment on this item.
Sorry. All right, the DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We have a timer on the screen and we'll alert you when your time is up. All comments are part of the public record. Please let us know if you'd like to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. For anyone in the room, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. All commenters should spell and give your name and give your affiliation for the record and share your comment. I'll now check for any hands. All right, seeing none, I will hand the mic back to you, Roman.
All right, thank you, Amanda. All right, so yeah, one of the things that has been on our agenda to do is voting new officers, right? As of right now, we have a chair and a secretary, and our vice chair, Jana Gagnon, she stepped down because of a position that she was offered and had very limited capacity to continue in that role. So we need to fill that gap, but also we've taken the opportunity to then be able to appoint or reappoint members to these positions. I know we don't have a full DACAG today. I know we have some members that are absent. But I do hope that we can continue forward with trying to secure a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, so that we continue to, have that continuity of those three positions. So kind of as far as the process that we'll undertake here for electing these officers, we can do a self-nomination, or someone else could nominate someone for one of the roles, and then that person who has been nominated, or if there are multiple nominations, those folks can provide some remarks on their interest in the position, and then we could take a vote. On approving whether we want approving them for that particular position. Yeah, so before I think we jump into kind of making nominations and talk about that, I just want to pause and see if there's anything I missed from staff or legal, and then open it up for DACAG to see if they have any questions. So first, I'll turn to legal, see if there's anything else I missed during that overview.
Not from my perspective.
Yep, I agree with that too. This is Jason Rieger.
All right, thanks, Jason and Renee. Yeah, I guess the one other thing I'll mention before we get into the nominations is talk a little bit more about the roles, right? Kind of just jumping into it without really providing you all with details of like what it would consist of, to potentially be the chair, the vice chair, or the secretary here. And so I'll provide more context around the chair and the vice chair, and maybe I'll turn it over to Julia to talk more about some of the roles that she has under as secretary of the DACAG. Yeah, as far as these three positions to kind of make up the executive team, quote unquote, of the DACAG that meets with staff to help set the agenda for the following meeting and kind of meetings therefore after. We do take into account feedback from DACAG members around potential agenda items, and then obviously from the public as well on things that we should be kind of discussing as a group. We have a separate call that happens the following week after our DACAG meeting to then set the agenda, to then be able to both provide staff who will be presenting with enough time to be able to put together presentations that they might be tasked with giving. So there is an additional hour or so requirement that one of these positions requires. But like I said, I think it is time well spent, because you're helping shape what the agenda would look like for the following meeting. As the chair, you're tasked with facilitating the conversation and being able to guide the discussions, and the members here to be able to have a discussion with staff, but again, primarily really focused on being a facilitator for the group. There's also some requirements around presenting at commission meetings or hearings, just to provide updates on on the work that we've been doing on the our annual reports and things along those lines. But it's also not a significant lift. Primarily it's just really the time that we're spending here, and then the hour to really set the agenda. The vice chair helps provide support for for those same efforts, except they're not facilitating. The vice chair, I think, steps in cases that the chair is not available and helps run the meetings or facilitate the meetings when the chair is not here. But it's also really involved in, again, agenda setting and and can help provide any additional support that might be needed. And then I'll turn it over to Julia to add here more context on the secretary role.
Yeah, happy to. So as Roman said, the secretary also participates in those agenda setting meetings that happen once a month with staff. And then other than that, the main responsibility is the minutes, and staff always provide a great template for those minutes, and it's largely just recording sort of the flow of the meeting, her attendance at the meeting, and then keeping a record of the votes and who seconds and everybody different, who abstains, etc. So that is the primary function. I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, with that, I'll open it up to DACAG members to see if there are any questions on the roles and responsibilities of these three positions. All right, hearing none, then why don't we proceed then to okay. Thank you, Commissioner Monahan, for joining us and providing comments as well during the NEVI discussion. So yeah, I think we can get then into some nominations if that's okay with folks. Hopefully we can fill all three positions today, and if not, that's all right. We can always pick up if there are any positions that are not filled during our next meeting. I understand that, you know, as new DACAG members, you all might want to think it through some more if you want to take on one of these roles. But you know, we'll do our best to try to secure all three of the positions here. So if I can start, well, let me see. No questions, no questions. Okay, well, I can kick us off here then, and I would actually like to nominate Julia for vice chair. And yeah, well, I'd like to see, yeah, then I'll just stop there, see if you have any remarks or if you're interested, and then we can kind of proceed from there.
Well, thank you, Roman. It is an honor to be considered for that position. I would be happy and grateful to fulfill that role. Yeah, I feel like I have my feet underneath me now with this group, and have been participating in the agenda setting and all of that. Had ample time to learn the responsibilities, and would be happy to take that on. And in particular, Roman, since I know that you're going to be out for sabbatical in the coming months, I think it's important that we have a vice chair who can facilitate the meetings in your absence.
Thank you, Julia, for accepting that nomination. Are there others who might be interested in the vice chair position? All right, seeing no hands or anyone coming off of mute, why don't we then vote on the vice chair? Yeah, let's vote on the vice chair nominee here and see if yeah, we can approve that. So do we have to make a motion for it, or do we just do a vote?
I would recommend making a motion.
Okay. So, this is Roman. I would like to make a motion to nominate Julia as secretary. Someone second?
Stephanie, I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie.
Roman, you said secretary, not vice chair.
Apologies. Let me
No problem.
let me do that again. I was looking at the wrong. I need to scroll down on my agenda here. I would like to. This is Roman. I would like to make a motion to nominate Julia as vice chair of the DACAG. And who seconds?
And I will second that motion.
All right, there you go. Thank you. Stephanie seconds. Now let's go through Let's do a roll call. Vote aye. Say aye if you approve, or if you agree. Say nay if you oppose, and then, or let me know if you will abstain. Oh, I have the wrong list of names here. Here we go. Abimael.
Aye.
Right. Chelsea.
Aye.
Curtis. Elena's not here. Fred's not here. Julia.
Do I get to vote? Okay, aye.
Roman. Aye. Sahara's not here. Sarah.
Aye.
And Stephanie.
Aye.
All right. Motion has passed. Congratulations, Julia. Really appreciate you stepping up, being VP, vice chair.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, then, since we now have a vice chair, it does then create a vacancy for secretary. Yeah, I wanted to see if there are any nominees or any interest in taking on the secretary role.
Make a plug for the role, and that especially for me, when as a new member, it just made it it helped me sort of learn the flow of the meetings and keep track of what was going on, and it was a good sort of onboarding type of role, just in case that sways anybody.
All right. I'm seeing some thinking faces here. I know it's a big commitment, especially on your first meeting, to try to make a decision on the secretary role. So this is what we'll do, to give y'all some more time to think about the secretary role. Actually, before I say that, I know you've now been selected as the vice chair, Julia, but are you okay with continuing to take notes during the remainder of this meeting?
Of course.
All right, thank you. And then I see a note here from Mona that agencies support the secretary's work and provide a template for minutes. So, it's just really much trying to capture what high level, what we're discussing. And then I think, staff also help support in case there's any gaps there. And then we get to review as well. But to give you all a little bit more time to think about it, why don't we move on to the chair and see if there's anyone that's interested or any nominations. Stephanie?
I mean, I would nominate you to remain as chair if that's something that you're interested in.
Me too.
Any other folks who might be interested? All right. Well, thank you both for that nomination. I've been the chair now, I want to say now for the past year, as Amanda reminded me earlier today. And I've thought about this pretty long and hard. And it is an honor to definitely carry the role as chair. It is also a big commitment, right? Was both facilitating and ensuring that we are on topic, right, and making sure that we are discussing issues that that we are discussing items that we can provide meaningful and technical feedback on to help move agencies in a way that are centering equity into the policies and programs that they are implementing. So with that, I would be honored to remain as chair for the next year and help continue to guide here the work that we're doing. I also believe in that, others should also have the opportunity. So, for this time, I will accept, and we can go through the nomination process here, but definitely encourage others. And I'll remind folks in our next meeting, for those that weren't able to attend, that, that is something that hoping that other perspectives, right, come into the chair role and help guide, what we are doing. And I think one of the big priorities for me over this past year was the equity framework, which we talk about in a minute. And something that I want to see through, and hopefully as a chair, hopefully we'll be able to continue to guide and develop as the months come. So yeah, thanks for the nomination. So with that, then we do have to make a motion for we'll need to make a motion for that. So does anyone move?
So moved.
Julia, who seconds?
This is Sarah. I will second.
All right, great. Thank you, Sarah. So then let's do a roll call vote. Say aye if you say aye, nay, or let us know if you'll abstain. Abimael?
Aye.
All right. Chelsea?
Aye.
All right. Curtis is not here. Elena's not here. Fred's also not here. Julia? Okay. Roman? Aye. Sahara's not here. Sarah?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. And Stephanie?
Aye.
All right. Thanks all. Yeah, really appreciate the support. Yeah, look forward to continuing to be chair here for the next year and helping facilitate and guide our discussions here. Yeah, so now I think they're turning back to secretary. Again, I think no pressure. And I feel like feel free to let us know. I think Stephanie had that role before, and now Julia. And so, I'm probably looking here to our new members to see if there's interest. And I also welcome, like, hey, you know what? I need to think about it more, right? I'm hoping that we can come out of this with a secretary, but if not, that's okay. I think we can, between Julia and I, we can figure out how to make sure that we cover for minutes next month as we approve someone. But yeah, I would love to hear from you all if there's any interest, if there are questions, or whether you just want to wait until next month to see if that's a decision you want to make. All right. Here, oh, Sarah, were you speaking? Or...
I was just mumbling to myself that I think an existing member should do it, but that's probably why they all didn't come to the meeting.
They probably saw it on the agenda and they're like, nope.
I've been in enough of these meetings. Yeah. I don't know if I don't think I have the capacity to do that yet. Kind of wanted to get more familiar. I appreciate Julia's pitch.
Appreciate that. So then why don't we do this then, just to not put any additional pressure on folks to have to chime in. Why don't we then, we have the chair and the vice chair. We'll hold the nomination for the secretary. We can discuss during our agenda setting meeting on just kind of next steps to secure a secretary during the next meeting and the type of support we might need for the June meeting. And then you all have some more time to think about it, and then hopefully we'll have other members, present in our June meeting, so then we can then select a secretary. Does that sound like a good plan for everyone? All right, seeing some nodding heads. And then for Renee or Jason, is that a good path forward as well?
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Yeah, great.
Great, thank you then. Right, so with that, then we will close item 7. Congratulations to the chair and vice chair. Yeah, we'll move on then to item number 8, which is DACAG member updates on priority areas. Okay, yeah, so do any DACAG members have any updates on these priority areas? On our priority areas, sorry. And can we share the slide? And as we're waiting on the slide with our priority areas, I did want to flag, as I mentioned earlier at the top when we were doing introductions, that we do have let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7 priority areas that we engage on. These are priority areas where we have DACAG meetings, obviously, that align with the priority areas where we all, as a member base, get to hear the presentations. Sometimes there is a need for a more in-depth discussion with subject matter experts that you see then are the names that are on here or the leads that are part of those. So these priority areas then serve as, that opportunity for staff to engage more directly on, let's say transportation electrification, right? Where we might want some that deeper discussion, or there's something that needs some quicker input, and so these are then used to be able to have those discussions. As you can see, there are now some vacancies. This is not the most updated one because I think there's more here than we have, but that's all right. There are still some vacancies here that would need to be filled. Y'all don't have to decide right now which ones you want to be a part of, but if you are interested, you can let Dorothy or Amanda know. Sorry, Amanda. You can let them know which ones you're interested in. I think we're able to have, you're gonna have to remind me here, Renee, is it one lead or up to 2 leads and up to 3 subject matter experts?
Yes. So the under the priority areas, individuals can self-select and we can have 2 self-identify as leads, up to 2. And then up to a total of 5, including the leads related to each topic or priority policy area.
Thank you, Renee. Mona, go ahead.
This is Mona from the Energy Commission. I just wanted to note that we have a few priority areas where we only have 1 member assigned, Roman, which Roman is going to be the chair and he's going to be on sabbatical. So those would be EPIC, the long-term planning, and the transportation one. So I'd really, for the agency support, it really helps to have more than 1 member in a subject assigned to a priority or as a self-designated subject matter expert. And the lead and the member is not really something that we use too often. So we don't need to take the time to designate leads unless it's something that's important to DACAG. So yeah, that was just the one things that I was going to mention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mona. And the last thing I'll say here before I open it up for questions or any feedback on or updates, I'm sorry, on the priority areas is that the priority areas are shaped by both us DACAG members. We had a discussion earlier this year on the areas that we would be interested in and continuing to engage on and getting presentations from staff on, as well as a joint letter that comes from the commissioners at both agencies on big areas of interest, right, that align with some of the priority areas we've identified or have had in the past, right, that we should be considering just based on the proceedings or docketed items that they might have, right, that are coming up for the year. So we get to, kind of reshape this every year. Last year, we were like I don't know what we were thinking, but we identified like 14 priority areas, right? I think we were trying to be really ambitious and identified a bunch. This year, as you see, is a lot more consolidated, just to make sure that we're, rather than trying to go, across a lot and very thin, we can go more deeper into issue areas that are our interest and that we want to provide feedback on. So that's just more broad, context on the priority areas. In regards to then signing up, as Mona mentioned, right, I think, you don't have to make that decision right now, but do take a look at those and then, let us know or let Amanda and Dorothy know, right, which ones of those you might be interested in joining. Or if you already have an idea of which ones, you can let us know right now as well. Go ahead, Sarah.
I just had a question. I'm sorry if you said this already, but how often do they meet, or is it on an ad hoc basis? These groups, or
It's on an ad hoc basis. Oh, go ahead, Mona.
Sorry, that was right. Yes, it's upon request. And when we have multiple members, you know, it's even if we just meet with one person, it's very helpful to us. So it's really helpful to have multiple members. We try to make schedules align. So when we have these smaller meetings where everyone's meeting together, but we also can do even separate meetings as well. We just, you know, work around your schedule. So appreciate, yeah, anyone who wants to sign up, and we'll work with your schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at times it's just you know, the request is like one meeting, 1 month. Sometimes there's no meetings. Sometimes it might be two, but it's ad hoc. And then again, I think to Mona's point, like really working around your schedule. And if you can't make it and others can, and you know, it doesn't have to be everyone, right? It could be one or all of those that are within that priority area. But yeah, if you can't make it, that's also fine. Renee, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to underscore that these are more lists of individuals who are, as the term says, subject matter experts in these areas. They are intentionally not committees or groups that meet that are formed by the DACAG to meet. Rather, they are subject matter experts to be available when the commission leadership asks for some input on special priority areas. And that distinction is important so that the meetings of the lists of subject matter experts don't need to be considered under Bagley-Keene and with noticing and open meetings and those rules that might apply to formal meetings of committees.
Thank you, Renee. Any other questions on these priority areas or interest in joining one of these?
Yeah, I would be interested in 1 and 2.
All right. So Chelsea is interested in affordability and in the building. And there we go. Thank you. Dorothy, I saw your hand up.
Oh, I'll hold till afterwards. Thank you, Roman.
Okay. All right. If there's no others, like I said, think about it. Email Dorothy or Amanda on this. And you know, we talk about these priority areas every month. So you know, if next month we talk about them, you know, and now you kind of heard a little bit more about what we're doing, and then you want to sign up for one of these, you know, so long as there's not more than 5, I think you're able to sign up for them. So then with that, I'll go ahead, Dorothy.
I just wanted to add on. So a lot just about the priority areas. Many times for agencies, these are great opportunities to get something in front of some DACAG members, and then the members we meet with will decide, that would be you, would decide, should this go to a DACAG meeting? Will we write a comment letter about this program or project? So if you've been to any of the different commission meetings, you may see DACAG's comments, their letters coming through. These are the spaces where that work begins, giving an opportunity to lead into a DACAG meeting. And if you've been able to maybe see a meeting before, seeing that a comment where a comment is being adopted or something like that, you'll see there's probably work that was done beforehand by the members in discussion, and then bringing it to the full DACAG for that discussion with all of the members. So it's a great opportunity to see work from staff from the agency, get that feedback, and then bring it to the full DACAG and to the commission. So just wanted to highlight that. And thank you very much for your continued efforts here.
All right, thank you, Dorothy. that additional context there. All right, well, why don't we turn to see if there are any updates from meetings that happened this past month on any of these priority areas? All right, hearing none, then we'll move to close this item and move on to item number 9, which is the DACAG Equity Framework. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we as the DACAG started to talk about, I think more than a year ago, was updating our equity framework. Y'all probably saw that attached on, PUC or CEC's website for the DACAG. And the framework, I think, was originally adopted by the DACAG sometime in 2019, I want to say. And the purpose of that document at that time was really to provide us guidance internally for the DACAG members, but then also to some degree, for agency staff, right, as they were, building out policies or program or guidelines. But primarily, I think if you looked at the document, it was a lot of the guidance was really reflected internally, right, for the DACAG on things that they should be considering. As we were having more conversations about the framework, and then really, I think, realized that agency staff was using the document a lot more than I think we thought they were. We wanted to update it, right? And by that point, some of the DACAG members had been here a couple of years. We had some new members as well, and thought it was time for a refresh. So we started the process of updating the equity framework, and I think we're at a point now where we want to kind of share some of those updates that we have made to the framework itself. The point of the discussion today is not necessarily to vote on the framework. It's more to provide you all with just an overview of the updates that have been made to the framework itself. And then kind of lay out what the process will be to then approving this framework, because definitely want to make sure that we get everyone's input into the information that makes it into the document. But then also we want to be able to see if there's any public comment that folks want to provide to help shape the framework, because as much as this is a document that we're helping put together, we want to make sure that it's also shaped by others that are part of these calls, especially community members that are representing communities throughout the state, to make sure that it is a reflective document of their needs and priorities that they have. So before we get into DACAG discussion, I'll first open it up for public comment, and then we can kind of walk through the document, and then we'll close it out with public comment as well. But first, let's see if there's any public comment now.
Hello, thank you again. The DACAG now welcomes public comments on this item, the equity framework. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We're showing a timer on the screen, and we will alert you when your time is up. All comments will be part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so that we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, please press *3 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute. For anyone in the room, please raise your hand. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record and share your comment. I will now check for hands. It looks like Angela has a comment. I will request unmute. Please state and spell your name and your organization and make your comment. Angela, it looks like you're unmuted.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, you just cut in and back out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Yep.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, DACAG. My name is Angela Islas. I'm a water projects coordinator with Central California Environmental Justice Network, CCJN for short. Hi, Roman. I saw your big grin. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Julia. Yeah, it's been a long time. I'm glad to be back tuning in and glad to be on this item to publicly comment. I do want to thank the whole staff as well as the DACAG for continuing to reframe the equity framework. I was actually part of the original DACAG members that had drafted this equity framework. I'm so glad to see it to where it's at now. And just quickly, I do want to just maybe throw a comment around about land transition. I think that's been a very critical discussion here in the last couple of years through my work on the energy side as well as on the water equity side. So, there's two different goals going on here in the state. We have the whole law of sustainable groundwater management. We have to reach water sustainability for groundwater and other resources till 2040. But we also have the goal of SB 100 for having all clean energy by 2045. So with these two goals, I think land transition has been pretty critical in these two different spaces. So given, just kind of like the skim of what I had looked into in the framework, I think that there's still an ability to have the DACAG really look into land transition and even seeing how the equity of land transition can be sustainable for communities that are in need of actual clean energy, as well as, the ability to be able to get connected to upgrades to the grid. I do want to point out that there's already one water district that is working on a full grid upgrade. That's about 135,000 acres of actual agricultural irrigated lands that will be retired for this grid upgrade. So that's something that I definitely would encourage you all to look into. I'm happy to send documents in terms of that project so that there's an opportunity to look into that. But there's always nexuses, as I always said in the past, with so many different efforts going on in the state. And I think the DACAG just has a tremendous amount of opportunity to really connect the dots for sustainability for our communities. So again, I'm hoping that with the discussion that y'all have here in the next couple of minutes, that it comes to fruition about the many opportunities that can still be weighed in with that framework. And again, I'm really happy to have been back here to be able to give this comment. And congratulations to all of the new members, as well as our new vice chair and chair. So that's my comments. Thanks so much for the time to allow me to be able to speak for this item.
Thank you, Angela. I will now look to see if there are any other public comments. Seeing none, I'll hand the mic back to you, Ramon.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Angela. Just as a note, Angela was also previously the chair of the DACAG. And as she mentioned, one of the original members of the DACAG who helped shape the framework, but a lot of the work that the DACAG did early on. I'll let Angela know, just as I let Roger, Adrian, and Andres know, as previous DACAG members, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. I will provide an extra 30 seconds for whenever folks provide public comment here. So Angela, feel free to, take advantage of those extra 30 seconds. I'm just kidding. During DACAG or framework items, framework agenda items, I know, we try to limit the comments to 3 minutes, but, definitely, in the past when we've had these conversations around the framework, we have opened it up for larger comment periods just to be able to make sure that we get all of the input that the community members here want to provide. So with that, I think that's great feedback, Angela, and something that I think we'll think about. I think any resources that you might have, feel free to share with us to be able to kind of take a look at and figure out how we embed that into what the draft framework looks like. And maybe at this point, if it would be possible to pull up the draft framework, so we can kind of talk through the document, talk about the updates, and I think where some of the thinking that we had as we were putting this update together, and want to give a big thanks to Julia and then to Jana as well, right? Who before she She left DACAG, was also, helping us kind of think through what this update framework should look like. So some of the additions that we've added here is really kind of more clearly outlining what the intent of this framework is, right? And so you see here more of a layout of the background for the DACAG and the framework, the set of guiding principles that we have as a DACAG, the purpose of the document, set of definitions, and then the framework itself, right? Which should help provide guidance and considerations for staff or anyone else, right, who might be looking at this document for guidance or support as they're putting together programs, guidelines, or anything like that. I'm just going to walk through it, and then Julia, feel free to add at any point here of anything that I might miss. But the background section, I think, is really just focused on the background of our DACAG, right? The DACAG itself. And putting this framework together, and the fact that we're going through an update. The following are the guiding principles, which are defined in the DACAG charter, which is a separate document that we're not going to talk about right now or try to update at this point. I know there's been also conversations of updating the charter, but we'll leave that for a further another time, because it's already enough trying to just update the framework. But these are the principles that are within the charter, and then so those are set. We're not going to then go and update the guidelines now, because if we were going to update the principles, that would require our charter update, which will happen at a future time. The purpose there, this is a new section within the framework, and I think it's really trying to outline what the purpose of this framework is, right? As I mentioned at the top, that previously this was more of a, if you look at the language from the framework, it was more like internal facing for the DACAG itself on what would guide them in as they were looking to comment or engage on the various items that come before the DACAG. I think moving forward, right, the purpose of this, as we see it, it would be to serve multiple purposes, right? To guide and focus the DACAG on what we're engaging on and discussing, but it's also to help provide, to be a guide for agency staff and commissioners as they determine how to embed and center equity. I think it's also for the purpose of prioritizing funding and resources, guide proceedings and decision making, and to guide agency staff, right, and commissioners on generally on the positions of the DACAG on the various priority areas that we have, right? Or I'm sorry, not on the priority areas, but the very specific equity related considerations to the items that you see listed below. One of the things that we try to do here is kind of try to align some of these items, these frameworks, right, with the priority areas that we have. And they're not one-to-one, but these framework items here are really kind of a reflection of areas that we've provided feedback in the past, or that constantly we're bringing up during feedback when we're providing feedback to agencies. So at the end of the day, what we want is to be able to have a framework that these agencies can or staff can look at kind of as a first run, right? Okay, if they want to bring something before the DACAG, right? Is there, use this document first to see what are generally the comments that we're going to be providing on community engagement, on non-energy benefits, right? On metrics, which are all issues that we've talked about. We've provided comments. We've given feedback on. So this framework and why we've selected some of these is to be able to hopefully provide that kind of first level of engagement for staff to look at, right? And then determine, okay, yeah, there's stuff in here, but we're looking to maybe learn more about, community engagement. I'm just going to pick on that one, right? So then that might need to be elevated to, a DACAG discussion. But again, it's kind of like this first run of something to look at to then hopefully be able to provide guidance. But I think most importantly, for areas where there are no, there's very limited, community engagement, right? Some of, community groups can't engage on all the proceedings or items that come before the two commissions, but there are requirements for some of those that, they have community engagement or that they approach the DACAG, and sometimes that's not doable because of the full, the full plate that we have of, agenda items that we're looking at. So this should not only serve as a purpose for like a kind of a first read through and see if they need to bring something before the DACAG, but I think also serve as a resource when there is limited representation from community groups in a proceeding or another agenda item where there is a need for some initial input or input on how to center and embed equity into that into those guidelines or policies. So then the next section is focused on the definitions, and I think part of this is already kind of like in statute, right? Of what do we mean when we talk about what we mean when we talk about disadvantaged communities. It's a statutory requirements that through SB 350, but then obviously primarily through SB 350, but then also, Cal Enviroscreen and all of that. And you see those definitions. In this document, we also wanted to recognize the definitions that have been established through the PUC's Environmental and Social Justice Action Plan as another definition that, that aligns really closely with ours. And, obviously it's part of a lot of the conversations at the PUC. So we really want to recognize those too. And then I think lastly, a lot of the feedback that we got when we first opened up the discussion around the DACAG, I'm sorry, around definitions, was the utilization of the term disadvantage. And so that piece that you see here at the top of this section is really being reflective of that feedback that we've gotten from DACAG members, but that we got from the public as well, right, around the utilization of the term disadvantage and needing to shift the way that we reference our communities. So all of that is reflected here. Moving on to the next section is on equity, right? We providing a definition on priority populations, disadvantaged ESJ communities, but then we also wanted to take this opportunity here to then define equity, because that was also sometimes the questions that we would get, right? And that was also feedback, right? That we provide some more clear direction on what we mean when we talk about equity. So again, I'm not going to walk through all the language that's in here, but what we did is as we went back and looked at our discussions, the comments, one of the things that came up, some of the feedback that we got was around, the alignment with the energy equity definition that the Energy Commission JEDI framework put together. So that's reflected there, as well as the definition for racial equity, right? Which is the type of equity that we see are the two that guide our work here on the DACAG. And then lastly, this bottom part is the framework itself, right? Providing that guidance and considerations that should take into account when looking at this document around non-energy benefits, affordability, access, outreach, and education, community engagement, health and safety, financial benefits and economic development, workforce, consumer protections, and metrics evaluation and accountability. I know these are a lot. These are 9. There's definitely a lot more than what we had before. But again, I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to provide is kind of that more intentional guidance and that is reflective of comments we provided in the past, right? So that we're not always having to repeat ourselves of like, yeah, we've talked about this before, we've shared this before in a letter. They already have some of this here. A lot of the language that's in here is from those notes or from comment letters we've submitted in the past. So hopefully it is reflective of that. But there are areas where we will need some support, right? And that's part of the discussion that I want to have with you all. But areas like affordability, right? I know there's a lot that we can do, and there's no need to scroll. Oh, well, you can scroll up. Thank you. In the affordability section, right? Like I think, obviously there's language that we can include around affordability, but it is somewhat of a newer, like defined area for us. So, what additional item, what additional information should we be including in that section? Because like I said, even though I think we had comments or discussions about it, we want to make sure that it is reflective of everyone's input here. So that's one area that we're looking for additional feedback. Within the financial benefits and economic development, there's we outline 2 bills that provide like legislative and regulatory directive to the investments in disadvantaged or priority populations. Are there any else that we have to include in there? And then the consumer protection section remained pretty unchanged from what we had in the previous framework. So I think that's an area that we also need to update and would love some support on folks that have been engaging on consumer protection. And then on the metrics evaluation and accountability piece, that's another area that I think we provided a lot of comments on. A lot of it was verbal, but something else that we want to be able to build out. So I'll pause there because I know I just talked a lot, kind of just dropped everything dumped a bunch of stuff on you all. And I'll first turn it to Julia to see if there's anything that I missed in that, and then kind of open it up for discussion after that.
I think we can go to discussion. Thank you.
Right, great. So for those that are on today, yeah, I would love to hear from you all whether, yeah, it's like, is the overall purpose that we have here kind of, does it make sense? Is that aligning, especially as new members here, right? Like, is that aligning with what you all are thinking? What needs improvement, or where do we need to add? And then what's missing, right? So a couple of things that we want to kind of talk with you all. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Roman. I guess I feel like I kind of don't count as a new member because I was staffing
Yeah.
I was staffing the DACAG when you guys wrote the first one of these when Angela was on, and I also helped draft the ESG action plan. But I'm happy to add my 2 cents. And as far as the process goes, are you asking for like edits? Or what are you asking for? I guess the areas that I think I can add to are probably, especially consumer protection, because that was the big thing that I worked on with solar, or solar consumer protection, and the consumer protection guide that we created at the PUC when I was there. And then also, I'm trying to remember, I think I was staffing the affordability proceeding as well. So I can probably weigh in on what I remember we were working on back then and what we were trying to achieve. I don't know what has happened since then. It's been gone for a while. But do you want us to, how does the process work?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And yeah, I mean, I think what we are looking for is language, right? I think, edits to this. I think we started to lay out what we understood were our comments in the past, and we want to continue to bolster the language that's there. So I think if you have additional things that we need to add to, that you think we should add to these sections around affordability or consumer protection, yeah, feel free. Like, I think you all have the documents, right? That was shared by Amanda. You could either, update it through there and send it to us, or, you can just send it to Amanda, and then we can update that to then reflect the feedback that you all have. Because the way that, I'll just get a little bit ahead of myself here, but the way that I'm envisioning this is that, this is a draft. You all provide additional feedback on anything that you feel is missing, right? Or that we need to edit here. We put that together, but simultaneously, this document is then also docketed, right? For folks that, especially community members who might want to provide additional comments on. There we go. Mona, thank you for providing that guidance. So if you have edits, send it to agency staff, and then we can compile it and embed it into here. But simultaneously, as you all are providing comments on this, we want to make sure that it's open for community, for public input. And we'll take that public into consideration as well to then update this document and then, hopefully finalize by our June meeting. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Thank you. In terms of how this document is used by the agencies, is it typically like, are we understanding it as like a starting point for them before they sort of engage with this group more directly, or sort of like this can replace direct engagement with our group? Yeah, and that would sort of like help me wrap my mind around what I think needs to be added to this document.
Yeah, and Julia, feel free to add here. The way we see it is as a starting point, right, for agency to start here, and then based on the need that they have, then determine like, oh yeah, look, we need more feedback, so we need to go to the DACAG. We don't want this to then supersede like actual engagement, right? We just want this to be a starting point.
Yeah, and to that end, I think it's sort of like the top line feedback and guidance that we find ourselves providing on specific issues every single time. So it's sort of that like baseline or foundation. And then, obviously we can get into more nuance with more specific topics that get brought to the DACAG.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, hearing none, yeah, I think as next steps here, then I think we would really appreciate y'all going back and taking a look at kind of in more detail what is in this document. Send if you have feedback, send that to agency staff so that then they can share with us to help put that together. Or update, I'm sorry, update this document to reflect, the feedback that's being provided. Um, and like I said earlier, simultaneously, we want to share this out with the public as well. I know it's already in our agenda, but hopefully, we can docket it as well so that within our DACAG docket to be able to see if there's any additional public input. I know Roger was really interested, so I got to make sure to let Roger know that the framework is here. But I think to see if there's any other interest in, if there's any other comments, with the goal of hopefully finalizing and bringing this to a vote in the June meeting. Because like I said, I think it's been somewhat of about a year, maybe more, since we started this process, and we want to finalize it. At the end of the day, the framework is always a living document, right? That we plan to revisit more frequently than we have in the past. So, if things are not reflected here this year, right, obviously we plan to make sure that we're revisiting this more on a kind of on an annual basis, I think, rather than like the multi-year basis that we had up to now. So if there are no other questions or comments from DACAG, we can then turn back to see if there are public comments.
Thanks, Ramon. Please raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. You get the drill by now. No, I'm just kidding. Please state your name, affiliation, and Dorothy, if you could pull up that slide, that would be great. I see Angela again. I will request that you unmute.
Hi, everyone. Again, Angela Islas, Water Projects Coordinator with CCEJN. So I just wanted to lastly comment for this item to address the definition of disadvantaged communities. So I did share with Amanda a document that was developed by the Department of Water Resources. This is a DAC nomenclature kind of like guideline that is pretty much encouraged for a lot of state agencies to sort of in a way kind of rethink the definition and discrepancies of disadvantaged communities. Like, for all of us, this has been something that has been embodied in so many of our programs, a lot of our funding, mechanisms that like has been able to give so much state funding to so many of our communities to be able to have access to energy, access to drinking water, et cetera. And so Department of Water Resources, honestly, through the years that they have been reevaluating a lot of their funding programs, they had noticed some issues around, defining disadvantaged communities, but in a way where the funding is actually getting channeled to those communities. There was a lot of confusion There was definitely a lot of definitions, even on the tribal nation side, that really wasn't aligning appropriately to how even the funding can actually, make them, in this case, eligible to receive those funds, whether it is infrastructure updates, whether it's, to be able to support, like for like surface water rights, et cetera. And that got me kind of thinking, that I think this is kind of the perfect time as well, to encourage the DACAG to look into this document. I know that that's kind of maybe like additive homework since y'all have a goal next month to approve the framework, but I think it's not too late. I think that Department of Water Resources really had something in their mind as well, that, it's not too late to really kind of reshift the definition of disadvantaged communities. And I think one of the perfect things that in the executive summary, kind of ends with is that, we want there to be consistency with the terminology that is able to serve our communities first and help minimize really the confusion around the eligibility criteria for our communities to have access to these funds. Because that's really the goal, right? Like that's the goal for y'all on your end. That's the goal for the state. Again, just really highly encourage you all to check this document out. Really encourage the staff also to look into it, and encourage the commissioners as well on the CPUC CEC side to really kind of think about this too. We want all of our communities to be able to be a part of the just transition for clean energy, but also for just equity for the state. So again, thank you again for the opportunity to comment again on this item, and really wish you all, just a great rest of your weekend. So thanks so much.
Thank you again. Please raise your hand if you have comments. If you're on the phone, please press *3 to raise your hand. *6 to unmute. Looks like Fabi has a comment. Fabi, I will unmute you. Please state and spell your name and your organization.
Yes, it's Fabi Laudas, F as in Frank, A, B as in boy, I, last name is L-A-O. And just wanted to once again, just really like congratulate the DACAG for taking on this revision of the equity framework. It's long overdue, and I just wanted to highlight that for the section that you're talking about definitions, to not, to also consider the ones in the JEDI framework from the Energy Commission as those, they do have a different umbrella term of justice communities, but in it, there's also disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, similar to what we see in other places and used in various programs and policies. But then there's also a definition related to the disability community, which I think it's very important to include in this work. So I just wanted to just highlight that one. And that's it. Thank you.
One more minute for if anyone wants to raise their hand still on this item. Please do so now. All right, I will turn it back to Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Angela and Fabi, for that feedback. Yeah, and thanks, Angela, for sharing those resources. That's not additional work. I think that's what we're asking for, to be able to get other resources or feedback. So we'll definitely take a look at that document that you sent to see what we can pull from it to add here, and same thing for you, Fabi, on that feedback. We did look at the JEDI framework, but we'll go back and relook at that to make sure that we're also addressing what you mentioned there. So yeah, so with that, if there's no other DACAG comments here, then I will close the item and move on to item number 10. Okay, seeing no hands or no hands, we'll move on then to item number 10. Thanks everyone for that discussion. All right, item number 10, which is the DACAG members provide updates regarding engagement, if any, with the Low Income Oversight Board. That is me. There are no updates. The only update I do have that I got from agency staff is that Commissioner Baker, who has been recently appointed to the PUC, will also now be the lead commissioner on the LIOB. And I believe they will be joining us for our our June meeting. So hopefully then we can talk more about coordination with the LIOB. just for the new members, I think obviously there's a lot of other advisory committees out there that we could potentially coordinate with, right? Commissioner Monahan talked about the Clean Transportation Advisory Committee. There's the Low Income Oversight Board on the PUC side. There's a broadband. There's a lot, right? But we at some point try to align because there is, I think, more overlap with the LIOB, and potentially just share, what our priorities are with them and see if there was any potential opportunities to align, where possible, some of the comments if there was like similar agenda items coming up. We did at one point, like I went and presented and we talked about potential, alignment and working with each other, meeting more regularly. That kind of fell off. But now with Commissioner Baker, I believe Commissioner Sharoma has moved on from the PUC. We could potentially revisit and figure out, right, the best way to potentially coordinate with them. They don't meet as regularly as we do. I believe they meet once a quarter rather than every month. So, some things for us to consider. But currently, there are no updates there. So with that, then we'll move on to item 11, which is CEC and PUC staff provide agency updates and announcements. So I'll first turn it over to CEC.
Thank you, Roman. We have staff ready to give updates. Give me one moment. Let me find them here. I see Mabel Lopez, who's actually also a liaison who helps bring information in to DACAG, works with us and agents and staff on the team, as well as Rachel and Sebastian, who are on as well. So Mabel, I'll unmute your line. Looks like you're good to go.
To all the new DACAG members. So, hello, I'm Mabel. I am the liaison for the Fuels and Transportation Division. I have one announcement. In collaboration with CARB, we just launched a new incentive project to help public school districts and other local educational agencies replace aging combustion school buses with zero-emission options. The project, called the Zero Emission School Bus and Infrastructure Incentives, or ZESB, has $500 million available to support the purchase of both vehicles and charging infrastructure. Applications will be accepted through September 30, and first priority will be given to small or rural school districts, as well as educational agencies that have a large proportion of students who receive free or reduced price meals, are in foster care, or are English language learners. Educational agencies located in low-income or disadvantaged communities will also receive secondary priority. And I will be sending that link to Dorothy to post in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mabel. And then I think we have Rachel or Sebastian. Is that right? I don't see Rachel at this time, but just as a note, we're going to be sending information to DACAG in the newsletter. So information that staff provided today, or staff has mentioned today, those being that joint newsletter to all the members. Really appreciate it, and welcome to the new members, and congratulations to the new officers, or to the officers, yeah. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Dorothy, and staff for those comments. I'm sorry, for those announcements. Now I'll turn it over to PUC.
I actually see Rachel Salazar in the comments, if that's who you're trying to, in the attendee.
Oh, great, thank you. I lost her for a second, thank you so much. Rachel?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, it wouldn't allow me to unmute earlier. Just wanted to also express my welcome to the new members and look forward to working with all of you in the coming years. For the Research and Development Division here at the Energy Commission, we had a few different announcements. First off, just wanted to let everybody know that our save the date for the 2024 EPIC Symposium just went out this afternoon. So that is scheduled for October 28th, and look for additional details as they become available, and we'll be sure to share them with you all as well. Additionally, we had 3 solicitations that may be of interest. The first is GFO 23310. This is for non-energy impacts and assessments for electrification retrofit packages on air quality through California residential homes. Research will provide guidance for cost-effective building electrification, process evaluation, mapping out of the non-energy benefits of home electrification, and how the benefits can be considered in strategies and decisions. So there is up to $3 million available for a single award, and applications are due June 21st. For the second one is GFO 23312. This is for our Community Energy Reliability and Resilience Investment Program. There is $64 million available, and projects will increase community energy reliability and resilience, as well as support the state's climate and energy policies and improve energy justice and equity. Applications for this one are due on July 12th. And then last but not least, we have GFO 23315 for clean dispatchable generation. $8 million available to deploy clean dispatchable technologies to help reduce reliance on fossil-based technologies and provide reliable power for critical infrastructure. These applications are due September 13th. And I think Dorothy was going to put the links to all of these in our chat, but they're also in the newsletter. So thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you for that update. Was there someone else?
No apologies. I was just saying thank you and back to you, Doman.
Oh, sorry about that, Dorothy. Great. Then moving on to PUC.
Yeah, Herman. Not much from us. One thing is that the EPIC Strategic Objectives Report will come out soon, and we will send it for you. We're asking for all comments by June 21st, but we will send that to you when it's out. Also, just want to let everyone know that I am going to graduate school next year and leaving the CPUC toward the end of June. I've only really been filling in for this role when we kind of had vacancies, but thanks for all the work you do. It's been an honor to work with you all. Yeah, keep chugging along. It's great to see, you know, things come along, such as the equity framework that we've been talking about for so long is kind of finally really moving, which is exciting. But yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that. So for anything like logistically, the priority areas, any comments, please direct those to Cheryl and the CUC staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, for that update. Yeah, still processing that. Congrats, that's big. Yeah, it's amazing news, and you know, super excited for you. Sad to see you go. You've been a huge huge asset here and support for the DACAG, at least I know since I've been here. So yeah, really appreciate you and all the efforts that and all your efforts over the last few years, and definitely gonna miss you, but really excited for you in this next this next phase of this next phase for you. So on that, like, I'll open it for other DACAG members in case they want to provide any remarks for Amanda.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, Amanda, and sad for us. You just you have a certain light to you that sort of brings up the mood in a really lovely way, and you, on top of that, you've been exceptionally well organized, exceptionally competent with everything that you do. And we're really going to miss you, but hope that you stay in touch, and very excited to see what you accomplish next.
Thank you very much. I am getting a degree in environmental policy to hopefully continue the work we're doing now. So you all have really inspired me to continue, working in the renewable energy space and the energy equity space, especially.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for that. I know, Stephanie, you have to hop off, so whenever you need to, feel free to drop. All right, if there are no other announcements, we'll move on into item number 12, agenda setting and attendance. Our next meeting is June 21st. And yeah, we'd like to use this time just to see if there are any agenda items that folks want to bring up for us to consider as we, go into next week thinking about agenda items. Julia?
I can just read off the ones that I've got recorded so far, if that'd be
Yeah.
helpful.
Mhm.
I took down the state budget impacts on CEC and CPUC programs, nomination of a DACAG secretary, SME assignments for new members, finalizing the revised DACAG Equity Framework after we get feedback, and then Commissioner Baker and the LIOB. Did I miss anything? Was there anything else to add?
Yeah, looking at others to see if there's anything that's come up today or has come up just in your in your spaces that you think we should consider for this upcoming, but even future agenda items.
This is Judith E. Clay from the CPUC. I will just say that June 21st may be a little early for us to have developed information on the budget because it will have passed, the week before and come into effect July 1st. So we usually work through an internal process in our agency to allocate the budget as it's passed. So it's probably a little premature to learn much, but I'm sure we will share what information that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks, Judith, for that. And yeah, I understand that we're kind of being the in between, right, between the adoption of the budget the week before and then then its impact going forward. I think maybe even if it's just a more high level overview of like here's the final budget, right, and what and the impacts, not the impacts, but here's the final budget and where we're seeing cuts to programs, right? Like I think that might even be helpful just to kind of have that information, right? Like so that we're kind of all aware of that, and then we can also just think about, again, like future agenda items that might be tied to where might be more support because there's cuts, right? And we then need to think about being more intentional and targeted with those limited resources that are available.
Yeah, I think coordination will really be critical. Thanks.
If there's no other agenda items, yeah, feel free to think about it. We meet on Tuesday, so if anything comes up from now till then, feel free to email agency staff with any other potential agenda items that you might have, right, both for June or moving forward. All right, with that, then let's turn to item number 13, general public comment. I'll turn it over to Amanda to walk us through the instructions.
There I am. Only at the very end of the meeting did I figure that out. Okay, thank you. DACAG now welcomes general public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you want to make a comment so we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to mute. To unmute. For anyone in this room, please raise your hand. All commenters should spell your name and give your affiliation for the record and share your comment. I will now look for any comments. All right, seeing none, back to you, Ramon.
All right, thank you, Amanda. All right, with that, let's turn to item 14, adjournment. So again, thank you, everyone. Welcome, new members. Hopefully, this is something that, will excite you moving forward and that, we continue to provide, we'll continue to have your engagement in these discussions. But Sarah, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but I just was looking at the calendar and I realized that the next meeting is Juneteenth weekend, which I don't know if everybody has Juneteenth off, but I will be taking some time off for that. So I don't know if you guys can reschedule at this point, or it may be too.
Yeah, that is a good flag. That is a good flag. I think in the past we did reschedule 1 year, right, because of Juneteenth. We'll work with staff to see. Probably we'll have to send out just maybe a quick survey, right, to see who can attend. Because if we don't have quorum, we might need to reschedule then, or potentially cancel, right, if we don't have participation, because Juneteenth is on the Wednesday, but folks might be taking additional days off, right? Or might be taking it on a Friday. So yeah, that's a good flag. Thank you for bringing that up. And so I'll work with staff agency staff to figure out best path forward there. Great. So with that, thanks everyone. Appreciate the time. Again, welcome members and have a great weekend.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Ramon.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.